Cuba, it's me! Welcome to episode 177 of the W.I.L.L.I.W show, which stands for Wrestling is Life. Life is Wrestling. Now, today, I wanted to talk about scary things in wrestling. I recently on the weekend went and saw that It movie with the clown or whatever, and it got to me thinking, what kind of things in wrestling have been scary over the years? I mean, you could take back when I was 8 years old, The Undertaker and Papa Shango, and those kind of things were scary to me at the time. But by the time I got older, things like the Boogeyman and those kind of characters didn't scare me because I was older. But when I was a kid, those kind of things terrified me. Now, what other kind of things would you consider scary in wrestling? I mean, the Owen Hart thing was really scary, but I didn't have any understanding what was going on, and they didn't actually show him falling, so there wasn't that. But that was definitely one of the worst things I experienced. And to me, one of the scariest things that I ever saw in wrestling was when Undertaker threw Mankind off the Hell in a Cell. I was generally concerned, and I thought like that was the end of Mankind until he got off the stretcher and started climbing up. But until that point, that was really scary, and I thought, okay, this is the day wrestling has gone too far, and they're lucky he didn't die or didn't get really seriously hurt doing that kind of a stunt because, like the Owen Hart and that thing, to me they were kind of different. Where Owen Hart's was a stunt but not a wrestling move; it was just part of the entrance. Where this was a stunt or move that they pulled off that could have, man, that could have been so bad. And then I try and think of like ones that I witnessed myself. I've been lucky to not witness anything too bad, and then any of the things that I've had witnessed, like injuries and stuff like that, most of the time you don't really notice when they happen. You just hear about them after, especially if you're wrestling on the show and you're just in the back and you're not able to watch every match. I remember one time in Niagara Falls, Ty Dillinger was wrestling as Shawn Spears, and it was his last match in Ontario before he was to report to developmental, and he was wrestling Cody Deaner, and they did a spot where Ty landed wrong on his leg, or Shawn Spears or whatever, and looked like he legitimately hurt his leg, and he tried to come to the back, but then Deaner started bringing him back out, and they worked the boys, and everyone thought that he really was injured, and we were so upset, well I was anyway, because I thought he finally gets his big break and signed a developmental and then he just broke his leg. Very well done match, by the way, and that was really scary to me. I mean, there's a lot of scary things in wrestling I've seen. Like, to me, I think the scariest things are now, like when I watch those backyard wrestling videos, and like in my day I did a lot of unnecessary falls and risks, and I look back and think, man, I'm lucky I didn't ran a split inch this way or that way. It could have been serious. And I don't really like to take those kind of risks anymore, now that I have a cameraman and I have something more to live for other than just wrestling. But when I watch those kind of things, man, I wince. Like when I see like somebody put on social media like some kind of like a backyard wrestling, some kids that are not trained doing some move off the roof, man, I cringe. I'm just like, to me that's scarier than any scary movie out there. Or like some of the things that they do like in the death matches and stuff, that to me is kind of scary when they put those sticks in their head or staple guns or cactuses or weed whackers and that kind of stuff. That really scares me, and like I don't know how they do it. Like I always felt like I was a brave wrestler and I took a lot of risks that other people wouldn't take. But to me, that stuff scares the heck out of me. I mean, if I was in there doing the adrenaline going, it'd be fine. But thinking about it, that would be the scary thing. If it just happened, well, sure. But like, there's been a lot of scary things I've witnessed, and I just want to know what the fans think. Like, have you ever been at an indie show and or if you're a wrestler, another wrestler, and seen something happen? I think the scariest episode I was ever in, but I mean it wasn't scary until I realized what happened, was I've told the story before on the show, and I went to do a drop kick on Eric Kearney and Jeff Black, and I hit the back of my head and knocked myself out and broke my collarbone. But I didn't remember any of that. I woke up in the ambulance, but apparently, looking back on it now and talking with Joe Dog Hallam, he told me he went over to me and my eyes were rolled back in my head and I was snoring. And he said it was scary, and he told me that he even couldn't tell me exactly the whole story until a lot of time had passed and he was sure I was okay, because he said it was just horrifying, and he ended up grabbing a fan's cell phone and calling 911. But to me at the time it wasn't that scary. It was just scary waking up in the ambulance, not knowing where I was and not knowing where my cameraman was. Um, that was the scariest thing that ever happened to me. Actually, one time I also got knocked out in a match against Sean Spears, and I hit the back of the corner of a metal chair, and I was knocked out. And when I got up, everything was yellow. That was very scary to me. I had no idea what was happening, but like everything through my eyes was yellow, and man, that was really frightening. And like just things now, like back in the day when I was a teenager, I would have thought it was so cool when Shane McMahon jumped off the Hell in a Cell, and now I'm thinking this guy's a multi-millionaire. Why the heck is he doing that? Because I mean, we've seen everything there is to see in wrestling. It's not necessary. You're not going to top anything. It still didn't top Mankind's throw off the cage. So why even bother? But I understand it. I understand it's WrestleMania. What else are you going to do? You're not going to have a 5-star match with Shane McMahon and Undertaker. You got to pull out some tricks. But if you're a wrestler, what's the scariest thing you've seen at a show? And what kind of thing was scary to you? Maybe like I said, some of the old characters. Maybe there was a character that was scary to you. I know for a lot of the wrestlers who are my age and older, back in the day, there was some really scary characters. Like Abdullah the Butcher was very scary, and Bruiser Brody and Stan Hansen, and would scare the Japanese crowds and scare for the life of them. The original Sheik, and these kind of guys were terrifying, I can imagine, as a kid. But I never got that. I was in a little town. I only got WWF in the 80s. So I never seen, like, to me, Undertaker was the first scary character, and then Papa Shango, and that's just because I was so little, whereas once I got older, those kind of things had no effect on me. So what, because always on the Willow Show, like or you get a leg drop, comment or you get a clothesline, subscribe or you get a suplex. Tell me, what is the scariest thing you've ever witnessed, whether it be live or just on TV, and why was it scary? I guess different things are different scary, maybe because you had an emotional attachment to that person, or like everybody is scared of different things. Maybe it was just a really scary spot, or could be anything. So let me know. I would love to hear it, because this has been episode 177 of The W.I.L.L.I.W Show, and as always, I'm your host, Elian Habanero. I love wrestling. Cuba!